This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Bruchim Abba, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha, Parshas Toldos, the Ben Lo Ashri, the Tzaddik of Ranana, on Parshas Toldos. I'd like to share with you this week 5 incredible offerings of the Ben Lo Ashri on Parshas Toldos. The Ben Lo Ashri comments on the opening of this week's Parsha, Ve'ila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak, and the Mefarshim Chazal are troubled. Why the double lashon? Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak. And the Tzaddik Ranana says as follows. You know, at the end of Parshas Chayisara, it says Ve'ela Toldos Yishmael ben Avraham Asher Yolda Hagar. So why here does it not say Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham Asher Yolda Sarah? However, it is well known, and this is an idea that the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh speaks about many, many times, based on the Arizal. The Chidah mentions it, that Yitzchak started out as Ben Sarah. Hashem pakara Sarah ula Sarah ben, because he had a neshama from what is called Sitra Denukva, the side of female. And that is why his parents never endeavored to get him married until after the Akedah. Because at the Akedah, Parcha Nishmasa, his soul went out, it went into the Ayel, and in place of it came the neshama of a Zachar. Now he could get married. Now he's Ben Avraham. So, and that is why, at that moment in time, it was nispaser to him of the Leda of Rivka Imenu, and now he's ready to get married. So we could say as follows, says the Ben Lashri, Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak. You know why Yitzchak could have Toldos? You know why Yitzchak could have progeny? Ben Avraham. Because now he's the son of Avraham, and he has the neshama of a Zachar. However, Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak, when Avraham gave birth, S could mean with, together with Sarah to Yitzchak, he wasn't capable of having children, because then he was ascribed and connected to Sarah. But Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak, the reason Yitzchak could have Toldos, Ben Avraham, is because he's the son of Avraham. And now he has the neshama of a Zachar, and he is capable of getting married. Now, second offering, Ve'ela Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak. Rashi says, who are the Toldos? Yaakov and Esav, Ha'amurim beParsha. No kidding. Who else are the Toldos of Yitzchak? Obviously, the Toldos of Yitzchak are Yaakov and Esav. Why is Rashi saying Yaakov and Esav, Ha'amurim beParsha? Also, why the double lashon? Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak. Furthermore, why does Rashi say Yaakov and Esav? Esav was older. Throughout Rashi, throughout the Chumash, it always speaks about Esav first. For example, Vayetze Harishain Ad Moini, even when they buried Yaakov, Vayikbro Oso, Esav v'Yaakov Banav, even when they buried Yitzchak, first Esav is mentioned, and then Yaakov. Why here does Rashi say Yaakov v'Esav ha'amurim beParsha? Now, there's an interesting question. How do we know that Yitzchak is Ben Avraham? After all, maybe the late Sanei Hadar are right, that Me'avimelech Nesabra Sarah. Now you see, Yitzchak Avinu had one son who's a tzaddik and one son who's a rasha. Why would that be? But both parents are tzaddikim. The answer is, but Rivka has some impure lineage, namely, she comes from a mishpacha of Rishaim. So therefore, she produced a child like an Esav, and Yitzchak came from a family of tzaddikim, so his contribution was a child like Yaakov Avinu. Now, if the late Sanei Hadar are right, and Me'avimelech Nesabra Sarah, so that means Yitzchak also comes from tainted lineage, so they should produce two Esavs. The fact that a Yaakov and an Esav are produced, that demonstrates that Yitzchak's lineage was pure, and not Me'avimelech Nesabra Sarah, but rather Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham. These are the children of Yitzchak ben Avraham. Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak. You know how we know Avraham Hoilidas Yitzchak? Yaakov ve'Esav ha'amurim beParsha. Because the fact that they produced a Yaakov and an Esav, Yaakov being a tzaddik and Esav being a rasha, means that while Rivka may have impure lineage, but Yitzchak's lineage was pure. So the fact that we know that Yitzchak is Ben Avraham. You know how we know Avraham hoiled es Yitzchak? Yaakov ve'esav ho'amurim beParsha. And this demonstrates that the Leitzanei Hadar are incorrect. Now, we move on to offering number 3, and here the Tzak Ranana says an amazing gematria. The numerical value of Yitzchak and Rivka, 208 and 307, is 515. Tav Kuf Tesvav Eschanan, the number of tefillos that Moshe Rabbeinu offered. And that is because tefillah is most closely associated with Yitzchak more than any of the other avos. Yitzchak davened explicitly for Rivka. Avraham davened for Avimelech, and through that, Agav Morcha, Begrama, through that, Sarah had a child. Even Yaakov got upset at Rachel, that Rachel asked him to daven for her. But by Yitzchak we find explicitly tefillah that he davened, Vayetar Yitzchak Lashem L'noichach Ishtai. Furthermore, Avram Avinu, we don't find explicitly that he was mispalel. It says Vayamoid El Hamakim Asher Amad Sham, and we learn that Gzeira Shava in Amida El Tefillah. Yaakov Avinu, it doesn't say he davened, it says Vayivka ve'en Pgia El Tefillah. But by Yitzchak it says explicitly Vayetze Yitzchak Lasuach Basada. And because Yitzchak is more closely associated with the concept of Tefillah, the gematria of Yitzchak and Rivka is 515. The gematria of Tefillah, the gematria of Va'es Chanan. Okay, we move on to Vayetar Yitzchak Lashem Lenoichach Ishtai Vatahar Rivka Ishtai. Now this pasuk is a bit difficult. Vayetar Yitzchak Lashem Lenoichach Ishtai. Yitzchak davened to Hashem opposite his wife. Vatahar Rivka, and Rivka conceived. First it says the pronoun Ishtai, and then it says the noun Rivka. It should first say Rivka, the noun, and then Ishtai, the pronoun. Says the Ben Lashri, an amazing pshat. He says, don't say that the reason why it starts off saying Lenoichach Ishtai is because earlier on in the pasuk before it says that Bekachtai is Rivka, when he took Rivka, so we know who the noun is, because then at the end of our pasuk it should rely on that noun as well. And just like it says Vayeta Yitzchak Hashem Lenoichach Ishtai, it says Vatar Rivka Ishtai. So he says as follows. The Gemara says in Brachas Lamed Daled, Reb Chizda says that if you daven for someone, you don't have to mention the name of the choila, like it says Kelna Rafana Allah. Moshe Rabbeinu davened for Miriam. He didn't make a Mishaberach Avasenu, who Yivarech V'Yirap is a choila, Miriam, Bas, Yocheved. He just said Kelna Rafana Allah. The Magen Avram Tzim Kuf Yates quotes the Zohar that when you daven, you have to be very specific and articulate, like Yaakov Avinu said, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. From which the Zohar says, Mikan demanded sali ba'ila frushe miloi. Says the Magen Avram, it depends. That if you're near the person, you don't have to mention their name, you could just daven for them. But if you're not near the person, then you have to mention their name. So Yaakov Avinu was not close to Esav, so therefore he said, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. On the other hand, Yitzchak and Rivka were in the same room, and therefore Yitzchak did not have to. But by Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu was davening for Miriam, they were in close proximity, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu was able to say Kelna Rifanala. That's the difference between Moshe and Yaakov. Yaakov was not near Esav; he had to say the name explicitly. On the other hand, Moshe Rabbeinu was near Miriam, and therefore he did not have to say her name. Says the Tzaddik of Ranana, this is the inyan of the tefillah of Yaakov Avinu, that he davened for Esav, because they were not close by. Okay, therefore he says as follows. Why at first does it not mention Rivka's name? It says Vayetar Yitzchak Hashem Lenoichach Ishtai. You know why it doesn't say her name? Because following the principle of the Magen Avram, that when you're in close proximity to someone, as Yitzchak was to Rivka, as they were in the same tent, Zeh bezavezu v'zeh bezavezu. So Yitzchak did not have to mention her name, and therefore her name is not mentioned. It just says Lenoichach Ishtai. And that's why it goes ahead and it says her name in the end of the pasuk. Because if it wouldn't say her name in the end of the pasuk, you would say, You know why it didn't say a pronoun? You know why it said a pronoun in the beginning of the pasuk and it didn't say her name? Because we're reliant on the fact that Rivka's name was mentioned in the pasuk before. Bekachta is Rivka, and once we know who she is, it could say L'noichach Ishtoi, V'ata Rivka Ishtoi. And it doesn't have to say her name at all. In other words, the pasuk is being merames to the din of the Magen Avram, that when you're in close proximity to someone, you do not have to say their name. And that's why it says L'noichach Ishtoi. But if the end of the pasuk would say Vatahar Ishtoi, then you would just say it says pronouns in this pasuk reliant on the noun of Rivka in the pasuk before. And therefore, it specifically says at the end of this pasuk, Rivka, and it omits the noun in the beginning to indicate the din that when you're mispala for someone in their proximity, you do not have to mention their name. One last offering. Vayomer Hashem la shnei goyim bevitnech. That Rizal teaches, it's brought in the Megala Amukos, in Parshas Vayechi, that Rabbi was the Gilgal of Yaakov, Esav was Neskagel and Antoninus. Antoninus circumcised himself, and he learned from Rabbi. The Bali had to say that Esav was born ruddy, and Yitzchak did not circumcise him because you have to wait until the blood is absorbed in the bloodstream. When he grew up a little bit and they realized it's not that the blood is not absorbed, he's just red by nature, Yitzchak said, okay, once we didn't do Milah at day 8, we'll wait till you're 13 years old. When he turned 13, Esav ran away and he didn't want to do a Milah. Rivka saw this running away and she was concerned, she was worried. What's going to be? Will Esav never have a Milah? To which the Yeshiva Shem Ve'eva responded, don't worry, Shnei Goyim Bevinech, Chazal Darshan Geim, great majestic leaders, Rebbe and Antoninus, who will be the Gilgal of Yaakov and Esav. And then when Esav comes back, he will circumcise himself. And this is alluded to in the Rashi Tevos and the Soifei Tevos of these words. Vayomer Hashem la, Shnei Goyim Bevinech, with the words and the letters, it's Gematria, Yavayu, Beis, these two will come. Begilgal, in reincarnation, Dinasi, as Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Umelech, and Antoninus, V'imal, and he'll circumcise. So Rivka was afraid that she saw Esav eventually running away, not doing the Milah. She said, what's going to be? Imkein Lamazal Anoichi. And they said, don't worry, Shnei Goyim Bevitnech. Vayomer Hashem la shnei goyim bevitnech gematria yavayu beis begilgal denasi umelech v'yimal. That is amazing remez of the tzaddik of Ranana, to which he says, Leka midi deloy ramizi ba'iraisa. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the week. And Shabbos, Parshas, Toldos, already Chodesh Kislev, haba alinu l'toiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.